that will help you in your recent exam, as well as in your in MCQ purpose also. So bone tumor is very small topic, but I think there are many uh, co- uh, undue question used to come in an exam, and sir used to ask some unnecessary questions regarding this. So you have to be very familiar uh, regarding this topic. And I also discuss about the amputation and what are the principle of the amputation. Though it is a topic of general surgery, but I try to cover it as much as possible. So orthopedic surgery really now subspecialty is trauma, arthroplasty, arthroscopy, hand surgery, deformity correction, and pediatric orthopedics. Only 1 to 2% of the case we can see regarding the tumor case. So musculoskeletal oncology is a established subspecialty of orthopedic surgery. I just work on this musculoskeletal oncology for last 2 to 3 years because I have a special interest on this field. And I think if we can generate a common consciousness to our colleagues along with the people to whom we are giving the treatment, then the outcome of this specialty will be increasing in day by day. So let's start regarding the WHO classification. After seeing this classification, I think any of you are get irritated. So, but just know what are the benign and what are the malignant. You already know all the pathology, and there this classification is based on the WHO classification, and WHO classify the bone tumor as well as the soft tissue tumor. Now they are all osteogenic, chondrogenic, vascular, hematopoietic, protocord based, giant cell based, and Ewing sarcoma. Ewing sarcoma actually primitive neuroectodermal tumor. It's also called a Ewing sarcoma. And uh, among them, the gross classification is benign. Benign means it has no malignant potentiality, or it doesn't infiltrate soft tissue and neurovascular structure too much, and that used to present as a swelling. And generally the long term follow up and the prognosis of this type of disease is very good. Rather we used to get some rare type of malignant disease where the result or outcome is very poor because of metastasis or the complication related to the tumor burden. So most common bone tumor in benign is osteochondroma or exostosis, then osteoid osteoma, and sometimes we can get hemangioma and giant cell tumor. Giant cell tumor is very common in the adult age group, and we used to get maximum cases of giant cell tumor. And regarding the malignancy, osteosarcoma is the most common, then chondrosarcoma, then there are multiple myeloma and chordoma, which is a very malignant tumor arising from the sacral region or the cleavage region. They are very rare, but this is highly malignant. And falciform cell used to get from the histopathology, and only the imatinib methacillate has some role of this chordoma. And last but not the least is Ewing's sarcoma. Ewing's sarcoma is such a tumor which used to get in the child age group. Now, whatever is the diagnosis, patient will not tell you the diagnosis. You have to reach to the diagnosis. So, after seeing any type of tumor patient, how you get the diagnosis within 5 to 6 minutes? Because in our OPD there is a rush to the patient, so it is very difficult to evaluate each and every patient. Believe me, I also can't give so much concentration to every patient. It's not possible for a human being to deal with 500 to 700 cases in our OPD, and we are getting the proper radiological and clinical assessment. So you have to follow some protocol based investigation. Like if you see the age is less than 30, then you have to think about fibers dysplasia, Ewing sarcoma, osteoid osteoma, simple bone cyst, condyloid fibroma, non-ossifying fibroma, osteosarcoma, aneurysmal bone cyst, osteochondroma, and infection, and last but not the least, chondroblastoma. If you are getting a patient more than 30 or 50, then if there is osteolysis, mm, metastasis, multiple myeloma, and in the adult age group, generally giant cell tumor is very common, and GOD means subchondral cyst type. It is most commonly incidentally finding. Now, I think this is also confusing. So I try to make it very simple. Like if you get a diaphyseal lesion, the this this is the benign side and this is the malignant side. If in the left side, in the all the diaphyseal tumor you can get, then you have to think for osteoid osteoma, stress fracture, chronic osteomyelitis, or adamantioma or fibrous dysplasia. If it is on the malignant side, then if you found the sign symptom of malignant, then you have to think about Ewing sarcoma, Langerhans cell histiocytosis, fibrous dysplasia. It is a benign disease. Sorry, and in the metaphyseal lesion, if you found some a tumor like this, then you have to think for osteochondroma. And the epiphyseal lesion in the most common tumor is giant cell tumor. Okay, so I just edit this X-ray. You can see all are the radiological feature within a single X-ray. This is not a real X-ray. I just over edited this X-ray for your learning purposes. See, if there is a osteolytic lesion over this epiphyseal lesion and there is soap bubble appearance, this is called giant cell tumor. If it is a adult patient, more than skeletally mature patient, and this is from epiphysis up to the metaphysis or epiphyseal lesion. If it is just subchondral lesion, this is called GOD. Or there is a very lytic lesion with a periosteal reaction, then it is called aggressive lesion. It's called maybe associated with metastasis or osteomyelitis, maybe, but chance of aggressive lesion like osteosarcoma or Ewing sarcoma is very high. And if you can see a osteoid formation over this adjacent to the cortex, then you can think about special type of osteosarcoma is called paraosteal osteosarcoma. If you can find a range of pigmentation, you are thinking about multiple myeloma in a old age group. Okay, if you can see a healed scar lesion with a sclerotic margin, you will think for non-ossifying fibroma. If you are thinking there is a sequestrum or in the sinus tract, then you are thinking about chronic osteomyelitis. Not all osteolytic lesion is necessary to be a tumor case. Okay, sometimes you can get this type of drag line and hyperostosis. This also is called a stress fracture. It is most commonly found in the soldier or regular runner. Sometimes we can get a light lesion over the metaphyseal lesion with a good sclerotic margin like this GOD. And this, if it is painful, then is also called Brodie's abscess. If it is not painful and it is found in a subchondral lesion, this is called GOD or subchondral cyst like thing. Sometimes you can get a small scar or opacity. It is an incidental finding. It's called enostosis or bone island. Though it is a very rare chance of pre-malignant lesion, but you just know this is how you read the X-ray. Okay, and last but not the least, this is the scar of healed physeal scar. Suppose it is skeletally immature. How you got this mature? Because this physis is not acting, physis is closed, so it is called skeletally mature. So, and this line is called as physeal scar. Okay, and only one finding, non-tumor finding, is reaction of joint space here. It can this is a patient actually of osteoarthrosis. See the reduction of joint space, osteophytes is there, and sometimes we can see some loose body also. So when you are looking for any X-ray, you have to search for all these things, and you have to back up the mind. You have to think about the proper diagnosis. Now, uh, if we divided it in the age group, then in the less than 10 years you have to think about simple bone cyst. More than 10 to 20 years is the most common chance of chondroblastoma, non-ossifying fibroma, etc. If it is malignant, you have think for osteosarcoma and Ames sarcoma. And always think scatally mature patient is most common is giant cell tumor. Scatally mature patient, osteolateral lesion, benign, most common is giant cell tumor. If more than 40 to 50, you have to think for metastasis melanoma. I have repeatedly told because that you have to categorize all the patient and you have to think accordingly. Okay, so I think now you can read this X-ray. You have to look for three things: lytic or sclerotic. Okay, and the age group. And I will discuss this X-ray soon. So in a musculoskeletal oncology, you have to establish the diagnosis, then you have to establish the staging of the disease, then you have to go for the treatment. Now, whatever we are dealing with in our OPD, maximum is benign disease. So there is a special classification on the staging, or on which stage the tumor belong, and the only name you have to uh, utter is Eneking. Eneking is a person who has classified the staging of the bone tumor. If you are thinking for benign bone tumor, it is classified as three: latent, active, and aggressive. By looking the X-ray, you can understand the unicameral bone cyst or an simple bone cyst, most commonly found in the proximal region and proximal humerus, and there is no so much destruction of the bone. But when you are looking for the aneurysmal bone cyst, there is expansile and some destruction of the bone. If you are thinking for the giant cell tumor, this is a highly destructive lesion over please, highly destructive lesion over the proximal humerus, so it is called aggressive. Okay, so only three category: latent, example is unicameral bone cyst; active, example is aneurysmal bone cyst; aggressive is giant cell tumor. Okay, if you are thinking for malignant bone tumor, you just know the name is anything, and you just do not mug up this staging, because you will high chance to do mistake in the exam. Just know the thing. If it is grade 3, that means there is metastasis. It may be nodal or it may be any visceral metastasis. So any stage 3 is called METS. It may be intracompartmental, it may be extracompartmental. Intracompartmental means within the compartment, or extracompartmental extra osseous involvement. Okay. Now stage 1 is low grade tumor, means in pathological it is low grade. If it is intercompartmental, then stage 1A. It is extracompartmental, then stage 2B. Sorry, stage 1B. Okay. If it is high grade, then it is called as type stage 2. Same thing is applicable here also. Intercompartmental stage 2A, extracompartmental stage 2B. So this is the classification of malignant bone tumor. Just listen, think if there is any metastasis, it be stamped as a stage 3. It may be aggressive, it may be non-aggressive, it may be intercompartmental or extracompartmental. Do not read this A and B. Just it make it simple. It is 3. If it is 1, it means it is low grade. If it is 2, it is high grade. Okay, I think you can understand. Now, regarding that staging of malignant bone tumor, there is a recent investigation called PET scan. This is highly effective because it can detect any metastasis and any residual tumor activity or any relapsing of the disease. Along with, we for planning of the operation, we have to do some angiography or angioembolization before the operation, final operation is going on. So generally for staging, we used to do normal HSCT thorax, chest X-ray, and whole abdomen USG along with the bone scan. As any bone tumor metastasize most commonly in the lung and the bone, so bone scan is the most common. But in the child age group, the bone scan is very difficult, and Ewing sarcoma is a lymphoid disease, so PET scan is the best. But the routine, if you are thinking about the routine investigation for staging, you have to utter about HSCT, thorax and the bone scan. In case of Ewing sarcoma and in case of soft tissue sarcoma and in case of multiple metastasis with a multiple comorbidity, patient cannot go through the bone scan, you can do a PET CT scan. This positron emission tomography, this PET CT can properly detect the metastasis site very easily. Now, final diagnosis. Any bone tumor, if you are thinking that you will do some intervention, you have to do a proper tissue diagnosis. Otherwise, if you have done any mistake in your operation, then it can cause a devastating problem. If you are dealing with a benign bone disease, you can diagnose the case only clinical and radiological investigation. But if you are thinking that this case may be a malignant, then you are going to treat this patient surgically or giving this patient chemotherapy, you have to know the tissue diagnosis. Otherwise, you cannot perform any type of treatment, or you cannot proceed. So after all investigation like MRI, like all the X-ray and soft tissue, you have to go for tissue diagnosis. You can do a open biopsy, you can do a cold needle biopsy. See, the result of open biopsy is so bad that you have big scar, you have to give a anesthesia, you have to admit this patient, and huge bleeding of this area, you have to put a drain or your compression bandage, or maybe a chance of neurovascular injury, soft tissue surrounding infection, or soft tissue involvement, or extracompartmental spreading of the tumor. And also there is a chance of infection over this area. This patient was suffering from a giant cell tumor. Only open biopsy has done see this wound. And I remember this patient in the ward. This patient give me a call book at the night at least 2 a.m. Severe bleed from this area. I have to ampute this patient over I have to do a shoulder disarticulation at that time. Anyway, so if we do a needle biopsy, see, only put a needle, this is called Jamshedi needle. We can go through the biopsy along with some culture, because sometimes you can deal with the osteomyelitis or any infection. So you have to send a culture also, swab also. And see, this is a 1 millimeter scar. Without stitch, it can be managed. And during final operation, we can easily ellipse out this small scar without any damaging of any soft tissue. So post-operative wound care and during the resection, this the tissue damage surrounding will be very less. Okay. So this is the Jamshedi needle, and if you are dealing with a very deep tissue, then you can go like pelvis. You can use the CT guided core biopsy, like spine, pelvis. You can use the CT scan. And when you are getting this needle biopsy, you have to take 3 to 4 core biopsy in case of you are suspecting a case of malignant bone tumor. And the advantage of this needle biopsy is you can do it at day care surgery, you can do it under local anesthesia, you can do it a OPD basis, so you can just reduce the investigation time. Okay. Now, the most commonly asked question in our exam as a short note is unicameral bone cyst. Most commonly pediatric age group in the child. Most common site is proximal humerus. Most common site is metaphyseal lesion. It is lytic lesion and it is centric. Centric means in the midline, and sclerotic rim over there. And most common presentation of simple bone cyst is pathological fracture followed by pain. Because for this simple bone cyst, this or unicameral bone cyst, patient will not cause any pain as it is already weakened. So there is a pathological fracture. After that patient present with you or child present with you or parent bring to you that patient have something problem, and you have done X-ray and you will see this osteoid lesion. In this case, you can easily understand there is some fragment. This some fragment is called fallen fragment sign. It is the pathognomonic for unicameral bone cyst. The radiological diagnosis is enough for this diagnosis, and patient only present with a pain, the pain when there is a pathological fracture. Otherwise, that child will not complain to any pain. And how you be so sure? You have to give a arm pouch bag or any conservative type of management for upper lip. If this patient we came with the pathological fracture of the lower limb, then the treatment plan will be different. But for the upper limb, generally most common site is proximal humerus, so you can manage it by conservative management. And radiologically and clinically, when you are thinking that it is a benign disease, then you have to go for serial X-ray follow up. Means every 2 to 3 months the child will come to you and see the X-ray. Sometimes after this pathological fracture, this simple bone cyst get resolved, because it is think that sometimes in the old age group, old teaching, they used to put some deprimental injection or steroid, and the osteolysis is due to a retention cyst over this postural metaphyseal lesion, and may be a hypothesis that the active growing the physeal plate, there is some retention cyst over this metaphyseal lesion. And also they called that this retention cyst is not continuous with the intermedullary cavity, so this will increase size when it will continuous with this intermedullary canal, then it will automatically dissolve. Or after pathological fracture, if you go for conservative management, it will automatically dissolve. So no need to worry about. You have to see a serial X-ray. And if you are thinking that it is over the weight bearing area like subchondrial region, then we cannot leave this patient, because the child will not obey your command. They will jump and run, and so that may be complicated with a pathological fracture. In that case, when you are very sure about the clinical diagnosis, like pain, there was no pain, there was no swelling, there was no constitutional symptoms, only insidious onset the X-ray, then only you can go for a TENS nailing. This is called intermedullary nail, is called TENS nailing, TENS, TENS nailing, titanium elastic nail. What we have done, you just make a continuous cavity with this cavity with the intermedullary blood. So this retention cyst will drain to the cavity and it will automatically heal up. After 8 to 6 weeks, we can remove these stents, and that person will easily treated. Okay, so it is the recent advanced treatment of simple bone cyst, but only for the weight bearing bone or subchondral region or impending pathological fracture, when you are you are so sure about the diagnosis. And uh, I again repeat, the diagnosis of this unicameral bone cyst is clinico-radiologically, because there is, if it is a malignant, there will be some periosteal reaction or osteoid formation, or patient will complaining of pain first, then swelling. There will be no swelling in simple bone cyst. Okay. Now, aneurysmal bone cyst. Aneurysmal bone cyst is also most commonly asked as a short note. You have to write that it is also a benign disease, most commonly found in the child, but it also found in the adult, and also found in the old age group. Most commonly found in the metaphyseal region. It is lytic and expansile. See, this is expansion of the tumor, and generally eccentric. Eccentric means not centric. The side of the tumor of any anatomical structure is called eccentric. And also there is a sclerotic rim over this area. Why sclerotic? Because this is a benign bone and will try to protect this tumor to spread. Okay. And if you have done an MRI, you can found multiple fluid level. This is the pathognomonic for aneurysmal bone cyst, but not confirmatory for aneurysmal bone cyst, because This aneurysmal bone cyst formation may be secondary to any other malignant tumor like chondrosarcoma, like any other tumor. And this aneurysmal bone cyst sometimes has a differential diagnosis of telangiectatic variety osteosarcoma. So when you are looking for this type of aneurysmal bone cyst, then the X-ray will be a expansile, and sometimes we can see some septa over there, and in the child age group are the most common, because but it may be found in the adult or old age. But in the adult and old, this aneurysmal bone cyst used to get in the axial skeleton, not in the uh, mm, uh, in the limb generally, or the limb. See, this is skeletal immature, the physis is still acting. So skeletal immature patient getting with expansile lesion with multiple septi most commonly found, and there will be swelling followed by generally pain is not associated with this case, is a incidental finding, or patient may be present with a small swelling also not a sure clinical sign or clinical complaint of this aneurysmal bone cyst. They also will present in our OPD with a incidental finding of a radiologist, and they also refer to you. So you have to do a MRI, you have to think about the soft tissue, and if you are thinking this type of typical aneurysmal multiple fluid level, then you are thinking about aneurysmal bone cyst. Now, how you treat the patient? In the old age group, the treatment of aneurysmal bone cyst was curettage and giving a bone graft over there. But when you are doing a big incision, when you are doing a big intervention, you have to be very sure about the diagnosis along with the comorbidity, because when you are giving any bone graft, you have to take the bone graft from another side, like iliac crest is the most common side, and the fibula is the most common side. Suppose you are taking a bone graft from the iliac crest, now there is a infection of the bone graft side, so this is called graft site morbidity. There is graft site morbidity. Now, if you are giving a big incision over there, so the scar and their chance of infection over there. So the recent treatment of aneurysmal bones is sclerotherapy, like the piles. Sclerotherapy means pedocanal injection. If you can give at least maximum 3 ml of pedocanal can be given in a cyst, and if the dose schedule is, you have to assess the cavity, and per 5 ml 5 cubic millimeter space, cubic centimeter space, you can use 1 ml of sclerotherapy. Just know the name, at least no need to read the dose. You just know there is sclerotherapy is the best treatment. It can automatically regress, and you can do it by a small stab incision. Doing aspiration, you send it for biopsy, and after that, with this Jamshidi needle, you can do a scraping over the wall of this tumor, which will cause a aseptic inflammation, and you are putting this sclerotherapy there, that will cause endothelial damage, and it will automatically heal this cavity, because like a hematoma will resolve, then this aneurysmal bone cyst will be resolved. So it is a latest treatment for the aneurysmal bone cyst is sclerotherapy after a general biopsy, and the curopsy means the curative or the injury of the wall by doing this needle, and you can do it under a siam. Siam means there is a continuous X-ray machine going on. Okay. Now, as I told, see, this is the proximal tibia, the physis is active. So this is in the case of the eccentric expansile lesion, and there is sclerotic margin, and the osteolytic lesion. We put a needle over there, and after giving after acropsy, we put the pedicellum, and this is the follow up. So it is healed nicely. Okay. In case of axial skeleton, like adult patient, this is expansile lesion, and under CT guided, we can do the biopsy and do the sclerotherapy, see the result. Okay. So next topic is, and the most common hot topic, or it is the most commonly case given in your exam, is called osteochondroma. So please concentrate here at least for um, few minutes, because this is the most common bone tumor we are encounter in our OPD, and most are the growing child present with a painless swelling over any periarticular region, or any special any long bone, or any flat bone. And this is very hard, and sometimes this osteochondroma can cause pain only due to superficial bursitis, or any trauma that can cause the fracture of the stalk. So this is a very benign bone tumor, and most common name of this is exostosis. And osteochondroma is a histopathological diagnosis. So best try to utter, sir, it is a case of benign bony swelling arising from the distal part of the distal posterior medial or anteromedial aspect of the femur in a skeletally immature child for last 9 to 8 months of duration. So that is that, and without any neurovascular deficit at present. That will be the your short case diagnosis. So you have to utter that it is a benign bony swelling. That's all. You no need to utter this, it is a osteochondroma, because it may be, you cannot, you will provide only the patient, not the X-ray. After giving the this patient, we will uh, allow you to see the X-ray, or any teacher will allow you to see the X-ray. Then they will ask to corroborate this finding. So without seeing the radiology, you cannot utter that it, or you without biopsy, you cannot utter that, sir, it is a stem in the case of osteochondroma. So you can make it is a benign bone swelling or benign bone tumor. Anyway, there are generally osteochondroma is three varieties, so pedunculated, and one, if base is very broad, this is called sessile variety. And if it is a multiple knobby swelling and broadening of the metaphyseal region, and there is synostosis of the bone of the proximal tibia and fibula, and there is a short height and hereditary problem, this is called multiple hereditary exostosis, or it is also called diaphyseal achalasia. This is the name is coined because this tumor going to the towards the diaphysis is called diaphyseal achalasia. But in the diagnostic criteria of this multiple hereditary multiple epiphysis is hereditary problem and short height, along with multiple periarticular involvement over the all over the joint. Okay. Now, if you are thinking about the pathology, that is only a small swelling arising from the growing physis, and over this growing physis, there is a hyaline cartilage over there, and this is actually pathological term is hamartoma, normal tissue in the abnormal side. It is completely benign, and if it is long standing, and it can develop a secondary chondrosarcoma 1 to 2% of the patient, and it is most commonly the change may be found in the flat bone osteochondroma. There is high chance, but otherwise there are very benign. They not complaining of any pain in the presentation, and the patient will present to you with a very long history, 5 to 6 years, or 5 to at least more than 1 year, and patient will complain of no pain actually, or they used to came to your OPD to drag your attention that there is a swelling. And what you have to do, you have to go for a clinical examination, you have to see the clinical finding. See, there is no venous permanency, only a, if you going to palpate, there is a bony heart, you can evaluate your finger of below the base of the tumor. So the margin is well defined. So, and there will be generally, if it is painful, that means this is a bursitis only. And so all the feature will be suggesting of benign disease. So you have to do a X-ray. After that, you have to assure the family member and the patient that this is a very benign disease, no need to worry about. And If it is too large, if it is doing any problem to the patient, then you can go for extra periosteal excisional biopsy. What you will do? You will do for extra periosteal excisional biopsy. That's all. আর কিছু জিজ্ঞাসা করবে না। Extra periosteal excisional biopsy. When this swelling is very big, their swelling and cause very pain. And one question sir can ask, what is the cause of pain in the osteochondroma? You will just utter the basic thing, sir. Maybe due to bursitis, maybe due to the fracture of the stalk, and rarely there is a chance of secondary osteo there is a secondary chondrosarcoma. This is a very rare chance, but you have to know that. Now, osteoid osteoma. Osteoid osteoma is a true benign bone. Actually, it is not a bone tumor, but it should be treated as a bone tumor. It is the hyperostosis of the cortex, and there is a active lesion. This is called nidus. Actually, this nidus not seen in the properly not seen in the X-ray. It can be properly evaluated by a coronal CT. CT scan will help in this diagnosis, and most commonly in the growing age group. And this patient will came to you a night pain, severe pain, and this pain can be subsided by aspirin tablet. So it is also called aspirin tumor also. And in the old age group, we used to treat this patient by a open biopsy or open excision of this area. But when you are doing a open biopsy or open excision, if there is a chance of pathological fracture over there, you cannot address it properly. So better do a percutaneous needle introduction. Along with you can burn this nidus by a radio frequency ablation. This is the MCQ most commonly asked. And the latest treatment of osteoid osteoma, it is percutaneous CT guided radio frequency ablation. You can increase the local temperature more than 90 degree within 15 to 20 minutes. That patient, the nidus will burn, and that can be located by the CT intraoperatively, and that can be done under local anesthesia also, or small sedation in the case of child. Oh, and it can treat the patient as a daycare. Patient will come at 9 a.m. Patient will go back within 2 to 3 years after the post-op care. Okay, so and the osteoid osteoma is a radiological diagnosis and clinical diagnosis. Patient will come with very small swelling if it is present on over the tibia. If it is present in the femur, there will be no swelling. There will be, but there will be severe pain. And on the X-ray, what you can find? You can find a hyperostosis, but there will be no periosteal reaction. See, there is no periosteal reaction, but there is a hyperostosis or cortical thickening. Okay, and you may find a loosened area. You have to cut, take a CT cut. You can find the nidus or nidus. And some student can ask, why sir this is lytic? Because there is a active ossification center over this center of this area, and that will highly spread a new osteoblast, and that can cause this ossification. As it is one type of membranous ossification, this high transition zone cannot get ossified by the calcium. When it come at least 1 to 2 millimeter away from the center, then it get ossified. That's why this is a loosened area, and the pain of this osteostoma is due to prostaglandin, so that the aspirin will act like a magic drug. Okay, now another lytic lesion over the epiphyseal lesion with a sclerotic margin in the pediatric age group, most commonly treated as, or you should be think about chondroblastoma. Chondroblastoma means there is a epiphyseal lesion, and in the skeletal immature patient, generally if you get this and this generally in the centric lesion and all the sclerotic margin over there, that most commonly found a chondroblastoma. But if this same picture found in the skeletal mature patient, then you are thinking about giant cell tumor. Okay, and that as it is just in intra-articular region and subchondral region. So if you go through this joint, or you have do a open biopsy, or you have do a bone grafting or curettage, then there will be severe problem in the joint, or you can distract the hip joint, or you can distract a cause of neck femur fracture. So if you can do a percutaneous approach to this area, and you are radiologically and clinically you're sure that it is a benign disease, then you can do a same thing, radiofrequency elevation like osteoid osteoma. You can burn this tumor and it will automatically regress. Okay, and pain will goes, and this patient also will present a very low frequency, and sometimes maybe with pain or minor pain, or maybe a incidental finding also. If it is increasing size and on MRI you can see some calcification, then only you are thinking for operative management. Otherwise, you can leave it as such like a geode or subchondral cyst, or anything. If it is significant or any causing any problem, or you are finding any calcification over the MRI, then only, and patient is symptomatic, means there is some pain over there, then only go for this treatment. Otherwise, you can leave it as no touch lesion. Okay, now the biggest topic is giant cell tumor. Please try to concentrate because this is the most common long question asked in the written exam. The giant cell tumor is most commonly found in skeletally mature patient, epiphyseal lesion. Sometimes it may be a epiphyseal metaphyseal lesion, means it started in the epiphysis and goes up to the metaphysis. Okay, and it's purely lytic lesion, and expansile means it will expand the bone, it will deform the anatomy, and it generally eccentric. Eccentric means not in the central position. And if we take a biopsy over from this area, we can see multiple giant cell, and these are small is called stromal cell. The stromal cell is the pathognomonic cell for the giant cell tumor. It will cause the destruction of the bone by activating the rang ligand, and it will activate the osteoclast, and it will cause the bone destruction over this tumor surrounding. So giant cell tumor is no, is the most common tumor in the periarterial region in the adult age group. May be present with a painful swelling, or may be present with a long-standing knee pain, may be present with a pathological fracture, rarely. But most common the presentation of giant cell tumor in the adult age group is a painful knee or painful joint. And though it is a benign, sometimes this patient come to a ROPD without any complaint or without an incidental finding also, they also present. But you have to write some clinical feature. You can say that sir, patient may be present with a painful swelling, but it is a long standing, not within six months. More than 6 months there will be pain, or there will be a small swelling over there. Okay, now the treatment of giant cell tumor is extended curettage. Extended curettage means you have to go through the tumor, you have to curate all the tumor tissue, you have to go up to the normal tissue that they're bleeding over there, and you have to destruct all that tumor locally by seeing the dental mirror and using the endoscopic light source. You have to do a pulse lavage, you have to give a adjuvant therapy by a hydrogen peroxide that can kill the tumor, and you can use a high speed bar used to use in the mastoid operation, but we can use here to curate all the tumor tissue. And after that, we the recommendation is argon laser therapy, but here argon laser is not found, so we can use a diathermy cord. By spray mode we can burn the tumor tissue. See, this is a standard curettage. When the gross pathology of the giant cell tumor is the brain like material with blood mix. Brain like material is a blood mixed tissue. Okay, and I am using a high speed bar here. I am using a dental mirror to see the undermine area of the all the corner of the tumor, so we can curate it out. And I am using the endoscopy light source. After that, I am using the high speed electrocautery to burn out all the infection. After that, you have to do a pulse lavage with a hydrogen peroxide. You just utter the name for extended curettage is the treatment of giant cell tumor. Okay. And after that, we can use a plate, or you have to manage the defect by bone cement or in the bone grafting. That's all. That is enough for a undergraduate student. So if there is any defect of this area, you can put a bone graft, or you can put a instant bone cement to fill the defect. Okay. Now, if it is found in the central or axial bone, how you will do this? Then the only the way to treat this axial is arterioembolization and zoledronic acid. It is a tumoricidal. It can damage that tissue, and it will get sclerosed, and all the signs symptoms will subside. And the last but on the list, if the giant cell tumor is very big, very expansile soft tissue involvement, then we can use a denosumab. It is most commonly used after the osteoporosis, but here we can use it. And we can use a tumoricidal. It's called zoledronic acid. Is a one type of latest generation of bisphosphonate that can reduce the size, and the curettage or excision is very easier of this type of tumor. So at the end, you can write down the name of the true drug, denosumab and zoledronic acid, which can help for excision or curettage. That's all. Now, osteosarcoma is the most common malignant bone tumor in the pediatric age group, but it has a biphasic pattern of the age distribution. Most commonly present with a constitutional symptoms, pain followed by swelling. And on examination, you can find a good venous prominency over there, that will be very hot, warm, because highly vascular, and there will be ill-defined margin and variegated appearance. Means malignant bone tumor or malignant tumor has a variegated, means there is sometimes a hard, sometimes it is soft, then sometimes it is firm. So it is a variegated appearance. And most commonly, this type of patient may present to you with a metastasis, like lung mets is the most common, then is the bone mets. Okay. And on the radiology, you can see the Codman triangle, means the elevation of the area. This is called Codman triangle. This is the cortex, and the bone is called Codman triangle. Then you can see the sunburst or Sunday appearance. This is the typical feature for osteosarcoma, and there will be the matrix is called osteoid, means there is a highly sclerotic, and there is a patchy bone formation of the matrix. So this is a clinical or radiological sign of osteogenic sarcoma or osteosarcoma. See, there are many variety of osteosarcoma. I am not going in details. Just know the primary osteogenic sarcoma are the most common in the age group, and most common site is metaphyseal lesion. Okay, and also in the specimen, you can see a mutton leg like appearance. Okay, so Sunday appearance, Codman triangle, constitutional symptoms with venous prominency, huge swelling with a tumor burden, and patient may be present with a metastasis first. So this is the clinical picture of osteosarcoma. And and then you can after how you proceed after this, you have to do a whole length MRI, because that will can definitely help to know the extraosseous involvement along with the intraosseous involvement. Because when there is a periosteal reaction or Codman triangle is there, sometimes there is some intraosseous involvement. So the T1 image is very important for a MRI, that can delineate up to what extent the tumor is extended. Okay, and T2 is help to delineate the edema of the tumor, and also why it is full length, because any long bone, when osteosarcoma is most commonly in the knee region, distal femur is the most common site, then if you can miss a skip metastasis, suppose there is a skip lesion over there. So if you do not do a whole MRI, then you cannot get a the whole picture. Do not go for a tunnel view, because see, if you are seeing this, you cannot see what is going on over the distal humerus. So when you are getting any type of tumor, you have to put the X-ray or MRI whole length, because it will give you more information regarding the extent of the tumor. Okay. And if we go for biopsy, we can see there is a malignant osteoid formation. This pink is called osteoid, and this is the pathognomonic cell. Okay. And another malignant tumor in this pediatric age group also is called Ewing sarcoma. Ewing sarcoma most commonly found in the diaphyseal region, and there is a variegated type of bone destruction. Here, osteosarcoma is the bone forming tumor, but Ewing sarcoma there may be bone forming, but most commonly osteolytic, and bone destruction was there. And osteolysis is generally moth-eaten times or mm, multiple patchy involvement. And there will be a onion peeling appearance, means piyaj, onion peeling. There is a multiple laminar periosteal reaction is very pathognomonic in the diaphyseal region for Ewing sarcoma. May be found Codman tangle, may be found Sunday, but onion peeling appearance is the first pathognomonic radiological finding for Ewing sarcoma. Most common finding in diaphyseal, yes, diaphyseal region. And um, the child is the most commonly found, and at presentation it may be mimic like a acute osteomyelitis, because fever and swelling is obvious for Ewing sarcoma. So in the radiologically there is a loss of corticomedullary differentiation. That means, see, this is the cortex, this is the medulla, so there is a, you can differentiate, but here you cannot differentiate properly. Here you can differentiate properly. It's called loss of corticomedullary differentiation. That is the pathognomonic for any tumor and infection also. So you have to think in back of the mind, may patient child suffering from a infection, and I think that that will help in your treatment purpose also. And when you are getting this type of case, you have to go for MRI. You have to know the soft tissue extent. See, in the X-ray, there is not too much lesion. There may only some osteoid and some osteolytic lesion here. But see the MRI, this is a huge soft tissue involvement or a huge periosteal reaction. So MRI is mandatory for evaluation of the extraosseous and interosseous extension of the Ewing sarcoma. And one MCQ coming in the exam, that what is the origin of the Ewing sarcoma? You have to utter the endothelial cell of the blood vessel found in the bone marrow. Endothelial cell in the blood vessel in the found in the bone marrow. So it is a systemic disease actually. It can metastasise to the bone marrow. Okay, so it is a Ewing sarcoma is very common in this child age group, and genetics are very important for MCQ. The histology is small round blue cell tumor, more small round blue cell tumor, and MYC2 gene is very important, and CD99 is most commonly found, and FL one translocation is mutation is the most common found in the this tumor, and translocation of 1122 chromosome found in to establish a case of Ewing sarcoma. Okay. Now, age group more than 50 or more than 40, if you are thinking there is a osteolysis, you have to think for multiple myeloma and metastasis first. Otherwise, you cannot program your brain, because you can miss a multiple myeloma case. Multiple myeloma case most commonly found in the old age group may be present to your OPD with a simple low back pain, or maybe present with OPD with a pathological compression fracture of vertebra, and you have missed this patient by giving only painkiller. But when you are thinking that may patient present with a pallor, patient multiple bony pain with constitutional symptoms, very weak, then you have think about the multiple myeloma. So skeletal survey like skull X-ray, there is range of pigmentation typically found in the multiple myeloma, and the axial skeletal most commonly affected the limb also may be present with a pathological fracture. Why? Because the it is a tumor of the plasma cell. As the clonal proliferation of the plasma cell occurs, and the problem in the cytological level is uh, mm, uh, mm, uh, when immunoglobulin chain is formed, there is a proteasome problem. Proteasome means there is a cell granule that will help to properly fold a protein. Like if you are thinking that any protein is not properly folded, it's called that will not do a proper function. So proteasome, what done, proteasome, the function of the proteasome is to do a proper folding of the protein. So if there is a clonal proliferation of this highly malignant plasma cell, the proteasome is the main uh, uh, problem area that can produce a huge amount of light chain which is non-functional. As a result, the immunity will subside. As a result, that can activate the osteoclast Rangdang ligand, it can call osteolysis, and that will also cause a anemia. So after that, it also affect the any other visceral like liver, lung, and so on. So the multiple myeloma patient generally in the old age group, and they are come to our OPD with a simple low back pain or pathological fracture. Most common fast presentation and high ESR is the pathognomonic, and low hemoglobin level will raise the suspicion of multiple myeloma. The recent treatment of multiple myeloma after the bone marrow confirmation is bortezomib therapy, lenalidomide, and dexamethasone. This bortezomib is a immunoglobulin or that can that can act over the proteasome. It is a proteasome inhibitor actually. Last but not the least, when you are thinking a sclerotic type of metastasis, you have to thinking about prostate, you have to think about carcinoid, you have to thinking about seminoma, you are thinking about bronchus. They are all sclerotic variety. See, patchul, and also it also can found in a Paget disease also. But the most common finding with a pain, with low back pain, with this ivory, this is called ivory vertebra. This osteosclerotic metastasis is prostate cancer, most common, then carcinoid, then seminoma. And if you are thinking that there is a lysis and there is patient suffering from breast cancer or patient suffering from lung tumor, thyroid cancer, renal cell cancer, or colon cancer, most commonly breast cancer can cause osteolysis is 65%, and 35% is osteosclerotic, but most commonly is osteolysis. Especially in the vertebra, in the pedicle region is the most commonly affected for metastasis. There is going to be erosion of the pedicle. So this is called winking owl appearance. Is found in the skeletal metastasis or spinal metastasis or vertebral metastasis, any type of any tumor that can destruct the bone. It's called winking owl appearance, the radiological finding over the skeletal metastasis, which is called pedicle erosion. If you are thinking that this is a case of TB, then you have to thinking look for the space over this vertebra. If space reduce fast, then you are thinking for TB. If the body or any destruction of the pedicle or body fracture, there may be a simple compression fracture or it may be a metastasis. So in the old age group, if you find this with a low back pain with a history of this tumor, you have to think for metastasis. Now I just go through that treatment. The rational any rational treatment for malignant bone tumor was amputation before the 1980s. But recently, the limb salvage surgery is considered as a routine for maximum patient. If we can save the limb, at least a functional limb, that will be better than a amputation. And the goal of this limb salvage surgery is wide local excision, because we have to do a merciless tumor excision, because we cannot left any bad tissue, or you cannot take any chance for recurrence of the local recurrence. But For this wide excision, we have to sacrifice some tissue. So after that, you have to think that that limb will be successful or not, because the proximal, suppose here is proximal tibia is gone, then you have to reconstruct with this mega processes. So if it is not functioning, then you have to better go for amputation. But when you are by MRI or pre-operative investigation, you can so sure that we can excise this tumor with a good margin, or means healthy margin, means if we can, we have to extend our excision up to a healthy tissue, that will call a wide local excision. Okay, so if we cut this tumor with a good healthy tissue, then we can go for this type of surgery. But if there is an involvement of vessel, only we can do a graft. But if there is involvement of major nerve, it can involve a two artery or vein, or it can involve a huge soft tissue loss, then we better go for amputation. Now, before going any operation for osteosarcoma, after the diagnosis, you have to give a neoadjuvant chemotherapy before the operation. It will help for disease-free survival of the patient. Means after the operation, after the treatment completion, patient will survive more than a period if you are not giving a patient a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And also it give you some time for planning the operation, and sometimes some book has says that it can prevent the mycometastasis of the disease. Okay, and also for operative point of view, the tumor tissue will sunk when you are giving neoadjuvant chemotherapy. But um, rationally speaking, the only advantage of neoadjuvant chemotherapy is it can increase the disease free survival of the patient. Survival means any type of cancer that can take the life of the patient can get rid of the tumor, and this called survival. Okay, after the operation, you can go or put the patient with adjuvant chemotherapy or continuation chemotherapy. We can do some metastectomy, means if there is only one lung, you can do a video assisted thoracic surgery, and you can just do a metastectomy. But it is a limited patient with a one to two metastases only, otherwise you cannot perform whole the metastectomy. So this type of multiple metastasis patient can be treated with a palliative intent. Palliative means one treatment is curative intent, means limb salvage surgery we can do. But if it is multiple metastasis, you cannot do anything. It's called palliative treatment, means it is a chemotherapy, and it will along with very low dose, and along with it will pain management only. Okay, this is called palliative chemotherapy. Okay, now this is the example of this limb salvage surgery. Then we can use a expandable expandable megaprosthesis in case of child age group, because there is a problem in the limb shortening, or there is a growing age group. We can use a expandable megaprosthesis, means it will expand as per the length of the child will grow. But it is very expensive. Better we can do another thing I will tell you. Last but not the least, you just know the name is called liquid nitrogen cryotherapy. We can cut that tumor and we can put it over a liquid nitrogen. It will just kill the cell. Then we'll implant this bone with this patient, and then the patient can do his normal work. And it's called extracorporeal irradiation therapy. Extracorporeal irradiation means we have cut that tumor, we will send it to a radiation unit, and we will give a 60 gray for 30 minutes. That will kill the all tumor. Then we will put it back this only skeleton over this defect, and will reconstruct this patient, and this patient will give a very good outcome. So it is called extracorporeal irradiation. Just know the name only. Okay. And last but not the least is rotation plasty. Rotation plasty is the only biological durable example that we can dissect the vessel and the nerve, and we will put this limb rotating over this proximal part, and patient can walk. This ankle joint can come as a knee joint, and patient can do his uh, everything, even rock climbing also, after a proper physiotherapy. And advantage is that there will be no revision of this operation, no phantom limb phenomena, and no amputation like sensation. He can live his life with his own limb. Last but not the least is immunotherapy. In the soft tissue sarcoma, there is some drug is a nanotechnology development, is a targeted therapy. Generally, all the drug can cause the damage of that surrounding tissue, but this this will target it only the tumor. That will dendritic cell based therapy is called sarsatinib, can use in the soft tissue sarcoma. And multiple myeloma also there is some use. So the immunotherapy is also a role to any type of malignant tumor. Last, only 2 to 3 points. Please listen. And this is the amputation. Okay, amputation is a surgical procedure which help the patient for getting a good stump for fitting any processes. Otherwise, it will has a very limited role. The indication of amputation is mangle extremity, severely damaged limb, which is non-functional. So, and second is crush syndrome. Crush syndrome means any type of big injury that can cause damage all the soft tissue, and that will increase the chance of renal failure of the patient, and patient can die for this crush syndrome. So there is a merciless debridement rather than do amputation. Or gas gangrene. Gas gangrene is also the example of this type of disease. So you can go for amputation. Then malignant bone tumor, which will involve major neurovascular involvement. Or diabetic foot. There will be no hope in the last stage of diabetic foot. You can go for amputation. But that is dry gangrene, which affect the bone also, along with the small and medium size of vessel, and there will be no hope of the regeneration. Then we can go for amputation. Volkmann ischemic contraction with a very old multiple operation has been done with a nerve injury, so nuisance limbs can be managed by amputation. And some congenital anomaly like tibial hemimelia or any type of special type of bad pseudarthrosis tibia, or any type of CTB, which are multiple deformity. But whatever is that, if we go for amputation, what there are some principle, like when you are doing a amputation, you have to do a proper skin flap. You have to make a plastic coverage over this area, and you have to do first you have to do the ligation of the artery and vein. Then you have to do a proper bone cut. Then the bone cut must be refreshened, and after that you have to cover with a soft tissue. And if one muscle is attached with this muscle, this is called myodesis. And if this muscle attached with the bone is called myoplasty. Now, this type of myoplasty and myodesis is contraindicated in ischemic limb. This is the this is the question. Ischemic limb, myoplasty and myodesis is contraindicated because as it is already low vascular, there is chance of necrosis of the muscle. So better just put this close this wound after hemostasis. Okay, and the main motto of this type of amputation to put a good processes. Now very good process is found, like myoelectric hand. Patient can do anything with this myoelectric hand, though it is costly, but it is a very good outcome. And this type of carbon fiber leg, and after amputation there is a problem is called phantom limb phenomena. How you prevent this phantom limb phenomena? By regular tapping of the stump, and amitriptyline is the antidepressant we can use to manage this type of phantom limb phenomena. But Last but on the list, after any type of amputation patient, you have to give a mental boost up to the patient. Patient can do everything with this recent type of rehabilitation and processes. So you have to counsel the patient properly. I think I can manage over the whole topic, and thank you for your kind attention. On the stop কর। জিজ্ঞাসা করে দাও।